this unity consciousness, there are different qualities of energy. And your soul is originating from an angelic soul group, soul energy. So you are a fractal of what we call Christ consciousness. It's the most pure energy. It has nothing to do with religion.
Sure.
Christ consciousness is this purest. If you think of unicorn energy, right? It's like almost that. It's you are a soul that comes from the 10th dimension. And in the universe, there are different dimensions. Like we're here in the third. Yeah. So, what else I can say about the 10th dimension and the angelic soul origin is that you're very linked into, for example, the royal star Fomalhaut. You would have also very strong connection to Archangel Gabriel. And I don't know if you have a relationship with archangels or have had some experiences through life with angels specifically, but for your soul to be a fractal of Christ consciousness, you have kind of the direct line to that type of angelic energy. And many advanced souls like yours are coming to Earth now to, basically be a light, change ancestral lineage in terms of just being there for a major shift. So I'm not surprised that you specifically are of that kind, if you will. Now, how do I see that you are of a angelic kind of soul? And we're talking about your soul's essence. Like in each incarnation, we are carrying our soul's essence. So it's always in us. It's like the purest essence of you. And often angelic souls like yours are incarnating also in the families that have the most generational trauma, because just your presence in that family to break the patterns, especially now, has a purpose to it, right? And it simply is to anchor that angelic light that is you, your soul's essence, and teach, because what we're going to get into is how you function as a teacher in spiritual mastery in past lives, right? So imagine your soul in the 10th dimension, right? And being this angelic energy connected to specifically Archangel Gabriel, which is the we are taught to look at energy. We were not taught to look at or feel energy. We're taught to look at images of things. But here we're talking really about energy and the quality of that energy. And Archangel Gabriel energy is related to pure creativity.
Interesting.
Like the creation of it all, really. And what's also been found, and because again, past life regressions of souls like yours being back as a fractal of Christ consciousness have described their lives or their experiences. So that's what I'm digging from here, right? It doesn't say that it's specific to you, but the quality of the energy that you carry can be put into words that other people have kind of said in past life regression state, if you will.
Okay.
And an angelic soul like yours are ready to balance that, ancestral, a lot of the ancestral kind of, I would say negative balance, or if you, when I say generational trauma, you know what that is. Your soul know what that means when it comes to all kinds of manipulation or abuse or narcissism, all of that. Like, a soul like yours is really there to interject that trajectory for that ancestral lineage.
Mm-hmm.
And you're here to balance that out by using your energy more effectively and learning to communicate your feelings with grace. That's because you also have, you're here to learn things too, even if your soul is like from a 10th dimensional plane. Yeah. So Fomalhaut is going to be important for us when we look at your galactic chart, because you're going to see it everywhere. The royal star Fomalhaut. When your souls started to wanting to experience your soul as an individual soul, you spend time in another galaxy. We're in the Milky Way galaxy now, like that's our neighborhood, but right. You spend, and I haven't really doused on because to me, time is not really relevant here. It's more the steps, the evolution. So I haven't doused on how long you were there, but you were in the Andromeda Galaxy to start to experience yourself as an individual soul. And the Andromeda Galaxy is kind of the neighboring galaxy to ours. There's a stargate between two other royal stars, Antares and Aldebaran, where a lot of souls are traveling in and out in between the Milky Way galaxy and the Andromeda Galaxy. That has been also corroborated through, this travel of souls. And in the Andromeda Galaxy, you were working with the energy of love, basically. You were, and the way I relate to that is that, as a young soul, you want to experience unconditional love in its outset, right? So that's what you were working with specifically, and you were a higher etheric in the 8th dimension, in the 8th density too. It's like how your soul is experienced, if you will. So in 8th dimension there, and that makes sense that we want to kind of you come from love, basically being an angelic quality of soul. You stepped into a place where you had the opportunity to experience that. Andromeda Galaxy is an advanced place and generated a lot of it's almost like I would say a cradle of souls, right? You get an experience of your own power, basically, and that's what you were working with in that place. You specifically, information I received was that you were working with, and here's the thing, that what goes on Earth now is, and here we talk about parallel lives and all of that, like what is it that is now? Because we can also see that what you worked on in the Andromeda Galaxy was to really get an experience of balancing masculine, feminine energies. And you basically are already a master of that. Your soul is already a master of balancing these energies, and you are here to bring it to Earth now. You were a teacher of this, because the alignments that I see in your astrology chart is all about spiritual wisdom, spiritual mastery, balancing. And I also look into, there's some channeled text for each degree in the zodiac that gives archetypal information about what is the energy here. And specifically this balancing of masculine feminine energy is what you are a master in already. Your soul is here to help Earth with this balancing act, right? So that's pretty beautiful.
Mm.
So if we link that into what you're here to do here in this life on Earth, it really is to, one, be a light in your ancestral light, ancestral line, to help break some of the ancestral trauma, you know, from generations back. And you're here to teach this balancing of polarity, basically, masculine, feminine, that we are working on, all of us, within ourselves, right? To feel in harmony and ease and balance. So you got this already. And what it shows to also in your soul's journey is that this was eons ago, right? Your soul experienced this. When I looked into your history on Earth, it actually comes back to this particular wisdom again.
Interesting.
So this is out in space, right? We're still talking about the space travel right now. All souls have had experience of the light and dark, right? And the next stop on your journey that came up and that is visible in your chart. We're going to take a look at your chart a little later, but just let me go through the bullet points here.
Sure.
The next experience of your soul was in Orion, and you probably have seen like Orion's belt on the night sky. That's in that constellation is representing the what we talked about in Andromeda Galaxy is your ancient history of galactic heritage, if you will. But now we're kind of talking in the middle. If we're going to put a timeline to this is the middle kind of story. And it's you were in Orion on a mission. You were not incarnated there. You were see if I got your... Yeah, you were an 8th density still, but you were a 5th dimensional being in Orion, still a higher etheric. So that means that you were not incarnated in a physical body, but you know, in outside Earth or the 3D plane, we can be, you know, in different. We don't have to have a body. But you were an 8th density being in the 5th dimension. That tells me, but the 5th dimension is this hybrid of some are incarnated in physical form, some are not, and you were not. You were there on a mission because Orion is important in the galactic heritage history overall, because in Orion, there developed with time a lot of polarity. So I'm not surprised that your soul was in Orion to help with the same thing, right? This balancing of light and dark, masculine, feminine, if you will. But you were captured. And who knows how that's happening, right? We our little human limited mind, right? But I think if I translate that is that your soul had an experience of this polarity that wasn't all positive. And you know, that's how we experience ourselves as a soul, through light, dark, zeros and ones, right, on and off, all of that. But and the energy that you were working with in Orion was still this you know, balancing, as I said, between masculine, feminine. Now, there was one piece of specific information that came through here.
Right,
you know,
right.
Ideas were pushed on you with seemingly good intention, but it wasn't enough or right it was not what you were standing for. It was made with lack of emotion and all the things that you represent. There was something, and if I translate that, there was something that you experienced as a soul that wasn't part of your value system. And clearly you were pushed into a dynamic, and you were not able to exercise your spiritual mastery in this balancing mastery that you stand for. And this is how energetic karma starts, right?
Interesting.
and gets developed. And so that was the specific information that was coming through. When I look at your chart, and I'll point this point out in your chart later, this particular Orion star, Betelgeuse, is located on the world axis in your chart. You have your Mars at 0 degrees of Cancer, which is a marker for someone who is here to impact world events. What this tells me is that what you are a master in, this balancing of feminine and masculine already, is something so relevant for what we as a collective going through now, that what you innately stand for and your essence is exactly what needs to be balanced on Earth right now.
Oh,
and you can see that in your chart. So what this means is that also when you open up in this life to the power that you have, the heritage that you come from as an energy, you will realize how much impact you can have on the masses, because that's what everyone needs. Does that make sense?
It does. Okay. Wow. No pressure there.
No pressure. And also we're going to soon get into, and I'll point this all out for you, how I can see this in your chart. Yeah, and just the last little thing about this Orion dynamic is that the interactions and this pushing energy on you that you weren't standing for, because in this, we call it the Orion Wars. Really, it was a lot of polarity that was created. There was also something that you did not agree to or wasn't natural for you. It was very surface level. You weren't agreeing with this surface level, if I call it that, way of being towards each other as a soul to soul. And that shows in your chart that it's something that you also may have experienced in this life, where you want to go deeper with people makes you frustrated sometimes, because you want to go deeper with some, and most it shows in our immediate families or extended families. You want to go deeper, but some people around you may not want to. There's something there that you have been signed up to work on, because it came through here that there's a resistance of going deep. It's very surface oriented, and which if somebody is surface oriented, they miss the deep experience of life. So I don't know if this is one of the things that needs to come through me to you, because this makes sense in some area of your life. It's something that you're working on, either impacting in somebody else's life or coming to a conclusion within yourself about. And it can also be all the way tracked back to this interaction and time in Orion. Now, you had a lot of support from your Andromedan heritage. So you actually were rescued from Orion by what we call the Andromedan Council, which is a group of soul. It's like a group consciousness again. So you were rescued out of that situation. And when I looked into your karma, and sometimes this can show up in our karma, like how we are transmuting karma for the collective, can also be for one of these councils. Galactic councils, if you will, the solar system that are associated with your sun. There are a couple of things that I want to point out. There's a lot in here, and I have not uncovered all of it. Like we could go on for 3 weeks talking about this chart, but what we've talked about today is your ancient soul history, which is based on the most outer planets, Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus. Those are the furthest out in our solar system. And what I do when I look at your ancient soul history is to see what are the alignments to those ancient. And if you recall, this was at the top of your chart, the 10th house. It's very important because that's what you came here to do. And it's, as you can see, if you recall the Andromeda story, here's Andromeda aligned to these outer planets for you. There's a whole bunch of other alignments here too that are what I'm looking for is what we call conjunct, and we'll get to Fomalhaut soon because you have that all over your chart. Conjunct is when there's a direct alignment like this. Opposite is when there's opposite kind of thing. But those are the indications that you have been either incarnated or it's an important alignment in your chart. Okay. Now the trines and the squares and the sextiles, you see those come after here. The trines were the blue lines. The sextiles are the shorter blue lines, and the squares are the red lines, the shorter red lines. So it's like there's so many layers within this chart, but also the astrology chart that you can uncover. But in this reading, you can only fit so much, right? Sure. So what I'm highlighting is the conjunct and opposite alignments. And the Andromeda story comes through here. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in the first 3 here. And then if we scroll up a bit, notice this alignment here. And when this little parenthesis here is really what we call the orb. You have an exact alignment to Fomalhaut, which is a very strong indicator that you have direct access to that energy. And it is to your Saturn there in the 3rd house, which is right at the bottom of your chart. And when we look at other alignments, further up in the chart, here's the Orion alignment, for example, and it has to do with that 0 degree of Cancer in 8th house. So whatever you worked on and experienced here as a soul in Orion has immediate world impact in this life. And it's like, that's so interesting to me. But that's where that conjunct alignment to Orion Betelgeuse is. And there is something here that you're meant to bring to this life and teach or resolve, or something that had to do with this interaction here or experience. And if we scroll up, it's more your recent galactic history, coming closer to, your Earth incarnations. It's hard to say like what happens first or after, but Earth is quite new in the galactic heritage, if you will, if you compare to life that has gone on in eons before Earth even was a thing, right? But as we scroll up in the chart here, you see Orion again is aligned to your Venus, which is in the 8th house. So there is another connection to and Mars and Venus in your chart are very close to each other, which is also that indication that Mars is the feminine, the masculine, Venus is the feminine, like archetypal energy, and they're very close in your chart, which means that you are a master of balancing these, like they come together. In somebody else's chart where they're like all over the place. A person like that and their energy might be working on figuring out that balance. So, and here, when we scroll up, you can see, right, you have so many Fomalhaut alignments here. Your north node is your destiny point, which is really setting the direction for your soul's evolution, if you will. It sits in the 8th house. The south node is what we're working to release from the past. And you have strong relationship alignments, I should say, to Fomalhaut here. Trine means that the energy flows really freely. And that's that energy of the Fomalhaut angelic connection that you have naturally is helping you to move forward in life. And so my recommendation is to tune into Archangel Gabriel, or that archetypal energy of like, because I wouldn't be surprised if Archangel Gabriel is a guide of yours. That's why I asked about if you have a relationship with angelic energy. If you don't, it's something that you can just open up to, and that's part of you.
I don't necessarily, but yeah, okay. Something
after this you might.
I know, right? Okay.
But it comes through you clearly your midheaven, which is the top of the chart we talked about, also is linked into Fomalhaut. These purple things next to it is also points that we haven't talked about, but you've heard of black holes, right? And there's a number of points in the universe that has black holes. I call it like wisdom kind of centers, right? And you have access also to many of those. There are 3 ones that are identified, at least what we work with in these readings, and it's what we call the Shapley Attractor, the Galactic Center, and the Super Galactic Center. And just as a glance on this chart, you have access to a lot of these wisdom centers. Really, it's what the universe is using to go around. And that's also a indicator of a soul that's highly advanced, I would say, that you have natural connection to that to utilize. And also your sun and your moon are also connected to a lot of wisdom. There's a whole bunch of wisdom in this chart.
A whole bunch of wisdom.
Yes. And
soul
lastly,
wisdom.
Yes, it is soul wisdom. Yeah. And lastly, the other royal stars that I was pointing out here was Antares and Aldebaran. So this is a stargate, the Scorpius stargate here. And your sun, this tells me that you have access to kind of this multi-dimensional energy, really, to other galaxies as well. Now, there's a lot more to say about this because the squares that came out like as those shorter red lines in your traditional chart is often what we're here to work on or integrate more of, or it can also be identifying kind of what our challenges are in life. Because there are theories that, we bring with us energy that we want to learn as a soul, and then in each life it just takes a different physical expression. But that could be a reading in itself, right?
In its own right. It's been a lot of fun. But it's early. It's like 7 a.m. in the morning. So I have not meditated today. So I was like, I'm going to meditate after this and see what comes up. Yeah. And I've started a little different of a meditation practice. So yeah, I'm going to just kind of sit on this It's great because it's quiet. Nobody's going to be home for another hour or two. So I have some time to really just sit and like the download, let it all sink in.
Yeah.
This is
Great
amazing.
idea. Yeah. Just let it soak in like a sponge, right? You don't need to do anything with it, but it's a gift. It's
Wow.
and you are a gift to this, so that people
Have you found that the people who seem to be more open and receptive to this are people who are already spiritual to begin with, who already have an open mind, who already have a practice, who already have something?
It's been a variety of interest, like why they said yes to this. And I forgot to ask you that in the beginning, like, why did you say yes to this? And some of them are just pure curiosity. But the thing is that our mind thinks in a very limited way, right? Why we would be interested in, like, it really is our soul who's recognizing that this is something that either you're ready for, that you're here to integrate or realize about yourself, and that's beyond what we think it is. Right? So it's this expansion that many people go through, and coming out of it, it's going to open up things within yourself that you're connecting with that you just can't think through, and why and all of that, right?
Well, it's interesting. My why for doing this was much more of a, maybe I'll get some messages in this to help me on the path of the change that I'm experiencing, the transition that I'm going through in my life. It may give me some answers, but I never anticipated in my wildest dreams the answers that I would get, and the validation that I got from a lot of things that you were saying is just like, yes, that resonates, and it's just so it wasn't more of an intellectual exercise as far as like, it wasn't a curiosity like, oh, I don't know what the heck this is, let's see what it is. It was more of like, I feel this is gonna, intuitively I felt it was gonna help me in some way, but I just didn't know what. So I've always been a person who's been open to exploring whatever it may be that will help me out, and this just felt right. So yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you, Deneen, for allowing me to look into your charts and do this reading for you. I feel